What is up? Welcome to In the Bag. Jason is the guest again, officially the most reoccurring guest of all time, the GOAT. How's it going, Jason?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
Good. It's really funny. We have to talk a little bit like we didn't just sit beside each other all day already today.
For sure.
And I have to say, for those of you visual, YouTube watchers, I like Jason's technique of putting the discs we reviewed in the background, just kind of sneaky in the window right there.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a little sneak peek on the episode today. But no, good day. Again, we're just kind of solidifying, getting stuff ready for Christmas, and then us being out for Christmas, and also the wonders of the business world, year-end inventory. We're starting to tackle that, so that's always a good time. Jason, how are you feeling? You finally feel caught up with everything? And
yeah, for sure. If we're caught up, we still have a few frustrated customers, understandably, because the postal service is a little slow in their delivery right now. I don't blame the postal service. Let's be clear; they had a lot going on after Black Friday,
Yes.
so we still have a few customers. So if you're one of those customers, just wait it out. It'll eventually get there. We've yet to have a single customer who didn't get what they want, who didn't get the thing that's been delayed. Everything so far has actually gotten there. More than one customer said, "Hey, just got it today. Thanks." So I appreciate y'all being patient. And if it doesn't, we will hook you up and we'll take care of it.
Well, and here's how serious we take it, obviously, is, last night, what time was it, Jason, when I text you?
Like
9:30?
Something like that.
Yeah. We're talking. If there's an issue coming up, we make sure our customers are taken care of. So anyway, enough business talk. I'm excited about the episode today. We have a really fun bag to talk about, because I think it's there's probably a lot more people like this than I think. Because, I was a one manufacturer person for a while, so I get that. But, just seeing people that have kind of a smaller bag, maybe they're carrying more of 12 to 15 discs versus 20 to 25. I always like those. And, just maybe giving people a little outside look at other manufacturers that are maybe manufactured by the same company, right, under a different name,
Yep.
or B, just maybe a little open-mindedness about something else. So, I think let's just get into it today, Jason. And we Jason threw a couple discs. We even threw a few in there that he's wanted to throw that kind of made sense for this area too. So we'll even get some bonus feedback from him on this episode. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and let in our guest, Lynn. All right, welcome in to In the Bag, Lynn. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you.
That's awesome. For those of you who are not video watchers, you're just audio, you're missing his great Christmas setup behind him. So looks like you're in full Christmas spirits there. I guess a little peek behind the curtain. We'll do a peek behind the curtain. We had a little technical difficulties at our initial time recording. I think you're in a very cool workshop. So you went from workshop to Christmas setup. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I work from home, so my garage is just over there, and it was quiet, and now everybody's out of the house, so it actually is much more comfortable in here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, people want to get to know you, Lynn. So let's talk a little bit about your game. First of all, how long have you been playing disc golf?
Off and on, more off since about 2015, and then more recently, probably 8 months, pretty obsessively. We'll say it.
And is that something where life just kind of got in the way and you just kind of fell to the side, and then now your time's kind of opened up?
Yeah. Life got in the way. Kids, other interests, right? The typical stuff. I'm busy with 2 kids, and they're growing up. I worked 2 jobs. I worked in a cabinet shop and was working my side hustle job. Mm-hmm. And I spent about 2 years working 16-hour days, no lie. And then I had enough, and now I'm self-employed, and was I need to either pick up pickleball or disc golf. And disc golf won. I love it. Good group of people. I think everybody, and a great game.
Well, hey, I'll speak for everybody. Glad you picked up disc golf again, because we will have this episode. So glad to hear that. Love the side hustle. And hey, Jason, I get it. We both have 3 kids. We get the unique and fun and wonderful, but challenges that come along with that.
I played this summer with my daughter. It was amazing. Every day we played it was great. 14-year-old daughter. It's you can't. Yeah.
What great quality
Yeah.
time, right? So that's how long you've been playing. We heard a little bit of background about you. Let's talk some more numbers. Let's talk some stats. All right. So let's talk putting first. We put you 10 putts at 15, 10 putts at 25, 10 putts at 40. How many are you making at each station there?
So I just went out in the rain because I figured what the heck. So I got 9 at 15. I got 6 at 25,
Okay.
6 at 25, and 4 at 40. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's great.
it's
Um,
it's my strong suit, to be honest with you. I'm the typical,
okay.
yeah. It saves my game.
Okay. I hear you. I think I always feel when my putting's off, Jason. I think you're probably the same. Like that, if we're off on the putting green, we're losing strokes. I mean, it makes it. You can make up for a lot of bad shots and up shots with some
Yep.
good putting.
Definitely.
So okay, well that's great. We put you out in the field, wide open field. We put a basket out in the field. How far can we put the basket to make you confident that you can hit it on a backhand and a forehand line, just consistently golf line?
If I would have to pump it 300, but consistently 275 comfortably,
Okay,
backhand and forehand 200, 250
200.
max if everything goes right, which it rarely does.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think that's fair. And, based on your bag, I can kind of see it's funny after you see hundreds and hundreds of bags and hear like the stats behind them, you start to see like patterns, right? But it makes sense why you bag the discs you do. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. You kind of already mentioned that your strong suit's putting because we usually ask, hey, what's the strongest part of your game? So would you agree that that's putting, Lynn?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Putting, okay. We don't typically ask this, but where do you feel like you need help? Where do you feel like you like leave strokes as far as your game?
Distance on long holes.
Distance.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like hit my lines, on golf shots in our small wooded course. We got a lot of small wooded courses around where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Within a 250 feet, I can generally hit my lines, and then I lose
Yeah.
a stroke by missing the basket slightly or whatnot. Right when you're off, you're bleeding out.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. And what part of the country are you in, Lynn?
I'm British Columbia and Vancouver Island in Canada.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
so
Okay.
we can pretty much play all year round. Snow might hit us for a couple weeks, but we're very
Mm-hmm.
very mild but wet and gray. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, it's own unique challenges, I suppose.
Hmm.
Well, all right. Well, glad we went through that. Um, this is a sidebar, but it does have to do with when you said distance, right? Jason, I don't know if you saw it, but DGP, the Pro Tour put out a Instagram post earlier today. We're filming this on Tuesday, by the way, and it was like you got to pick two, and there's like two attributes that you'd have forever playing disc golf, and one of them was like be able to throw over 600 feet, and the other ones were like never go out of bounds, and I forget what the other one was, but I had to really think about like would I want to throw 600 feet all the time, or would I never want to go out of bounds again? And I'm trying to think of how I'm sitting there trying to think of like what have I lost more strokes to, not being able to throw 600 feet or throw out of bounds. I got to say out of bounds. Never go out of
Yeah.
bounds again. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the smart but boring answer. That's the answer.
Right.
Like, hey, I want my ratings to be really good, but chicks dig
Yeah.
the long ball, like Tom Glavine and used to say. It's a flashback for the Braves fans. So,
Yeah.
but I've never like we have that internal conversation with the guys, and they will always choose distance because that's what they do. I'm like, no, I will never choose distance if given such a thing. I will choose putting or accuracy way over distance because I don't throw far anyway,
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter. Like they're adding two at a long distance. I have no distance, so yeah.
Yeah, 300
Yeah,
feet. 300 feet feels really good when you throw it in a field, especially being a new player. Like it's workable. I can
Yep.
turn that into something, right? So I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, Jason, it's like, I've never tasted 600 feet, so I don't know that I really care.
Yeah.
All right. I did pull it up. We got to talk through this for a second. Okay. So it's pick two. The first option is one ace at every tournament, ability to throw over 600 feet, or never throw out of bounds again. I'm still going never throw out of bounds again.
Yeah.
What are you guys picking?
Yeah, out of bounds for sure. For sure.
If you're picking two, I'm picking an ace at every tournament, and because that's probably
Well,
I'm gonna get a little ace pot every time, so I'll take a little money from those tournaments and never
Yeah.
go out of bounds. We play New London a lot. There's a lot of OB there, so maybe it's situational because we're here and we're at courses that have a lot of OB. But if I was a place there wasn't a lot of OB, maybe I would choose 600. But we got a lot of OB here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's another line of them. You pick two. I guess it's not how you read it, but I picked one from the first line and one from the second line.
Okay.
Second line is create a signature disc line with any manufacturer, ability to teleport to any course at any time, and then win one world championship and then never win again.
Teleport. That'd be
I got to pick teleport.
Yeah,
I'm picking teleport.
My vanity says I would love a signature disc. Let's be clear about that. I have a pretty big ego, but with nothing to back it up, it's just ego. But the practical answer would be teleport to any course.
Yeah, it would be fun. Like one world championship, like you're carved in history, you know. So it's like, what do you want to see?
But that world champion could be the Masters 65, and you don't win it for 30 years. So
that's true.
If I play devil's advocate for the genie in the bottle wish, like I want to be a millionaire. Well, your family just passed away, and you won. You whatever. That's a little morbid. I mean, it's so morbid. Like I've gone way too deep on some of these. Like I would never ever want 3 wishes because the Murphy's Law would come back and get you, right? So
yeah, exactly. Well, I thought that was fun.
Yep.
Saw that this morning, and that your comment about distance made me think about that. Like, how far do you really need to throw to score well? I think, to your point, 300, 350. I think once you get to that 350 consistent accurately, you can be pretty competitive if you're not trying to be a pro.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you're a pro, you got to throw 500 or more.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but on to the episode. I just thought that was really fun this morning when I saw it. I don't often get caught up in those. So let's talk about your putters. First of all, you're an MVP guy. Let's just, you do have Rico's and a yarn.
I like Castaplast as well. Yeah. I'm an MVP guy though, honestly.
MVP with a little Castaplast, right?
Yeah.
So, I noticed, so you're putting with Rico's, right? You got a lot of cool dies. Again, shout out Disc RPM. If you all aren't using that, you're missing out because I'm looking at all these really cool stamps and dies that he has here on his chart. But looks like you're putting with a Rico. They're glow Ricos.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. What made you decide to do glow Ricos?
I love glow and for dyeing, to be honest with you. And it just feels like I can't. I miss with them, but I can't miss with them. They're just feel so good in my hand. They're not over deep. They're not too deep, but they're deep enough for. I'm 6'6" with massive hands, and they fit my hand. I think they're pretty money until you get into the wind, and then it falls apart. Then it pull out.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, my wife has used a lot of putters and she chooses the Rico. That's like her go-to. She doesn't do glow. And Jason, depends on how this putting bracket fleshes out. He might be using Ricos as well.
Yeah, the Rico's losing right now to the PA3, so that's all right. But it's tight. The only runaway is the P2 over I think the Wizard or something. It's like it's running away. It's not even close. But the other 3 are tight on Patreon.
Yeah, well, I might have to go create a few false accounts and just like make sure that Rico sneaks through. Anyway, so I'm looking at your notes as well. Thank you for putting those in there. So you have your number one putter. You have your other glow Rico. You have in your offhand when you're like putting, and you said you don't like to throw it because it flies dead straight. So does that particular one is it just a straighter glow version or?
They're straight. I find they're just laser beams. I wouldn't give them a tick of any extra stability or anything like that. They go straight. They're beautifully straight.
Okay.
But
and it looks like your note on your envy is that's your wind putter. Like so is that like you need some stability, obviously. I didn't look. Is that a glow envy?
Yeah.
I couldn't see.
Yeah, it sure is.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you throw your envy off the tee or anything?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, shorter holes. I can't pump it very far, just being not having very good nose control with that. It's So I can get it out, 160 confidently. But yeah, it's a thrower, and I'll bust it out in the wind if I have to.
Okay. Yeah, and like really, as far as your putters are concerned, like that's all you're bagging putters. I mean, there's a lot of schools of thought, right? A lot of people bag a lot of putters because they like throwing putters. I would consider myself one of those people.
So
And go ahead.
I'm trying to bag minimalize, as you can probably see, or even mold
Hmm.
minimalize, but as well as have a really limited bag. Um,
Hmm.
and I putted with the Envy. That's what I first started with, was putting with the Envy, and I had a pile of them, and I'd putt and throw them, and yeah, yeah. So that's kind of my Envy story. I love the Envy. They're
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, they're a great disc for sure. And like, I think I have to remember, and like, this is not a knock in any way, but with you not throwing super
Hmm.
far, your detour and your uplink are probably covering. Because my question, like, I see a hole here, which is understable, like putters that you throw, or straight to understable putters. And you're saying you don't like to throw your Ricos too much. So there's obviously like like a little bit of gap there, but your detours and your uplinks. I mean, as far as like throwing an NV, I'm even going to jump up to the Crave for a second. But if you throw the NV off the tee versus like your Crave, what's the distance difference in those two?
Uh, Massive, probably 150
Okay.
feet. And I have a pretty heavy hyzer. I have a tech disc, and my hyzer's up in the 25 if I really try to juice it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah,
Okay, so I asked the Crave question because now jumping back down to the detour and the uplink, right?
yeah,
Those are more they're kind of filling that understable gap until you get up to like your Crave and your Signal,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And the
Okay,
detour can
cool.
fill a lot of spots. Like the detour is kind of like, you can act as an envy. Like
Mm,
I can pull it back and or push it out. I've actually aced with that
mm.
detour, straight as an arrow, laser beams.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
That's
really like it. It's, yeah, my favorite.
okay. So yeah, for sake of the conversation, I'm kind of pulling the detour and uplink down into like that. We'll call it like off the tee putt
Yeah,
mid approach because you're kind of, again, if you're bag minimalizing, you're kind of trying to cover a lot of area with those couple discs,
yeah,
right?
yep.
So we'll stay on the understable side and just kind of treat them like we'll call them tweeners between mids and putters for you. So detour, you said straight as an arrow. You can let it out on hyzer. Will it flip up for you and go straight? Is it going to flip up for you? Or is it just going to take the angle you give it?
It's gonna take the angle I give it. Yeah. I
Okay.
find it, I don't know if the right term is fickle, but if I mess up any angle, it bites me.
Mm.
And
Okay.
it's a good learning disc, because I have to get my angles bang on, or it will
Hmm.
do what I want.
And so tell me about the uplink then, because again, I'm a huge uplink fan. Like I love the uplink, but I would describe it as fickle. You have to be very careful. You have to know how much power to give it, what angle to give it, because it's going to do its uplink thing, but you have to be very cautious with it. So tell me about your uplink versus your detour. It looks like you sometimes bag it. So
Yeah.
what's determining if
Yeah.
you're bagging it or not bagging it?
How it went last round, and I'll actually throw the spay in that spot, even though it's not as understable, but I feel the spay is as understable. When I throw it, I use it for uphill shots, mainly the uplink, because
Mm-hmm.
it can burn over easily if I don't get my angles just right. Like if I have too much or too little hyzer or too fast, it gets very like finicky, fickle. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I love it too. It's a great disc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Jason, you've had a lot of experience with the uplink, the paradox, and like even the detour a little bit. Tell me about like that spot in your bag, because again, you're maybe Jason's maybe looking at the perspective of like true mid range, maybe even like pushing up into fairways, probably.
Yeah, I obviously this bag could easily be my bag at any given day because I don't have an uplink in my bag, but I use the uplink a lot. The NV could come and go, no problem. The detour I haven't been able to make work for me yet, but I haven't really
Mm-hmm.
tried to make it work. If that makes any sense, people talk about being really flippy. I don't flip stuff, but it didn't turn as much as my origin, but my origins beat in. So I think when I look at it now, I know we're talking forehand fairways today. The other thing that I see a little missing is the little bit longer. I mean, kind of like we're talking about, but more like for your backhand, some stability in there. Same thing I'm always missing as well, though that I see the balance and yarn are in there as well. I didn't really answer Brad's questions. I know that. I'm just kind of talking about as I think through the disc that we're looking at right here. So I'm with you. The uplink has been out of the bag for a long time, but every once in a while, if I go play with my kids, I'll throw the uplink. I'll be like, oh, wow, it's a great disc. But because my game has changed so much that if I don't catch it just right, it's going to punish me pretty bad. Whereas when I first got here 2 years ago, I used it a ton. But now that I've changed the way I throw, it's almost unusable. But when I take it out with my wife or my kids, that or the paradox, if they catch it just right, because especially a paradox, you can kind of just throw bad as long as you kind of get some spin on it, and it's going to go pretty well for those who don't have a strong arm. So I love the uplink for that very reason. And the detour, I need to mess around with some more. So I think it can be what I'm thinking it can be for me, but that's the lobster in a way is doing that right now. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I talked around the circle there. I apologize, Lynn. That probably didn't help you at all.
It's all good.
I like your bag. I could easily, like I say, every time I look at this bag, look at everyone other than the trail, because I haven't thrown a trail yet, but everything else in this bag could easily be in my bag.
Yeah, I think I could pull your bag and just be pretty successful with it as well. I think it's pretty great. Again, but to your point, Jason, I think what you're getting at is there is a spot right now, Lynn, that you're kind of missing, and I want to just ask you about that. We're not even where we're going yet, but I love like a slightly overstable mid range, but you have nothing in that whole realm. So if you have like hey, I don't need like a fairway shot, I don't need like a 250-foot backhand, maybe I need like a 200 though, and I need it to kind of land a little soft, or I need to get a little left. What are you throwing right there?
I would probably throw my detour. You said about two what?
It's like 200.
Yeah, I'd throw my detour. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about stability? Are you just changing your angle?
Yeah.
Is that what you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I find it doesn't, for me, it doesn't flip. Like it's not an egg two for me, but that's just me, right? Like I mean, I think we can agree these numbers are specific to you, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every time I look at an Envy and it's a 3, but when I had the Envy in the bag, I throw it 240 to 250 as far as I throw my mid ranges. And
Holy cow.
I was thinking my Wizard's the same way. My Wizard's a 2 speed, but I throw it 2 to 230. But my max distance with a driver is 300. So it just shows, like, to your point, it's those numbers are only as good as they are for you, right? Yeah. So I always forget an Envy's a 3. I always think of it as a 4, and I think of it a Wizard as a 4, but it's a 2 anyway.
Yeah. No, I completely feel you. I utilize my Envies a lot, like I would a mid range probably, if I'm being honest. So you're the detour. If you need to get slightly left, you're like just putting more Hyzer on the detour. Sounds like you're comfortable with Hyzer anyway. So that kind of takes us over to like the balance and the yarn. So yarn, are you using that for like forehand approaches and the balance is your backhand, or like tell us about that layout?
I'm just trying out the balance right now. I bought one of those boxes obviously and got it as a lap second, so I figured I'd try it. The yarn's basically a zone spot, basically. But yes. So forehand approach or backhand approach. What utility discs I think is what they're referred to.
Yeah, that's what I would call it for sure. Our approach disc, whatever, backhand, forehand.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not a zone guy, but you're a yarn guy. I think that's great. And then, have you thrown a zone, harp, Toro, anything like classic like that in that spot?
I do have a glow harp. I just don't like the plastic feel, to be honest with you. If just flies like my yarn. Yeah.
I think we all can agree most manufacturers have that disc, right?
Yep.
Like Latitude 64 has like the Savior, right? There's also the Harp from Dynamic. I mean, again, Toro, Zone, Yarn. I'm just kind of looking at like the discs we have over here, like A2, Mint has the Lasso. Yeah, so there's any manufacturer you can kind of find that disc. And so you're choosing hand feel and plastic preference over... Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And the balance is in a spot that I think is really fun. There's something I love about a really overstable mid range too. I I'm thinking like anyone's familiar with like Foundation or like the courses around here. Hole 2 at Timbrook is off that big hillside, and you have to kind of like throw it out wide and crash down. A lot of people throw the forehand, but I love throwing a big wide backhand that I know is just going to dive. It's
Yeah.
just a fun shot to throw and watch. So, is that what you're hoping the balance is going to be? Do you need that shot a lot, or do you not really need that with the courses around you?
No, I don't really need that. We're fairly straight, um, tight wooded stuff, and I can use the yarn for most of that stuff.
Yeah.
I bagged the Nord
Mm-hmm.
and actually got my first days with the Nord, but it comes in and out. Like the Nord's
Yeah.
in and out. It's a little more understable and goes a little farther
Yeah.
than the yarn. So I'm really trying to work on like not so much hyzer and getting a flatter shot so I can use a yarn
Yeah.
functionally. Because if you have hyzer and you try to throw a zone 150 feet, it's not good.
Yeah, it loves to crash out.
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense. Again, I know you obviously have thought a lot about your bag, so that's why like walking through some of these. Anyone who's actually looking at the graph is going to see kind of like it's almost like a zigzag pattern where you're missing
Hmm.
stuff like throughout the different layers of your bag. But it makes sense if we like think of the numbers behind how you're throwing, how far you're throwing. You're throwing hyzer, this disc, like your detour is really covering that whole gap there. That's kind of empty, right?
Yeah.
But to your point, you're trying to minimize the discs in your bag, so you're going to have more discs that kind of cover a lot of area.
And
So go ahead.
and what I find with MVP is, I mean, a bit of a fanboy, but you can get Detour, Uplink. They all feel the same. The Crave, the Signal, and whatever. There's
Mm.
a line that you can grab it, and it's pretty similar feeling.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and there's confidence in that. Robbie
yeah,
talks about that all the time,
yeah,
like subconscious confidence. There is value to
yeah.
that, right? And that's why a lot of times, and we talked about this like several episodes ago. But for me, like trying to like really solidify my bag, I'm going to choose like I have three envies, but I have a overstable envy, a straight one, and an understable because I want the
Yeah.
feel more. I want to feel more confident. I was even playing out in the rain with a buddy the other day. Shout out Cal if you're listening. And even like just I know my discs are wet, but I know like my envies are like so familiar, and I'm not like afraid of like them slipping out early or anything. Like I'm just so familiar that they're just like that's not an issue. I do the same thing with my FDs. I'm choosing like the hand feel and like the familiarity versus like maybe a disc that
Hmm.
should be a little bit better or better off the shelf, right? So yeah, I think that's definitely a point well taken. I'm looking at your craves here. You're kind of doing the same thing. You have two craves. Tell us like let's do the craves and the signal together because I think to your point they're all kind of in the same line there for you. Tell us about your craves and the difference between the two, and then your signal and kind of where they all fit into place. What kind of shots you're throwing with them?
So the purple Crave, my original Crave, we'll call it, is straighter.
Mm,
That's about it. So
okay.
unless I throw on hyzer and then it hyzers out, like anything will, right? So I'm really
Mm,
I'm gravitated more towards my craves now, uh,
mm,
because I'm working on flatter throws to get farther distance. The
mm,
signal I can turn it over now, and that's my second
yeah.
signal. It doesn't fly the same as my original one that I lost. So
Yeah.
my original one I could throw on hyzer and it would stand up and go 300 feet. No, no. If I hit everything right, it would stand up and it was just an amazing flip up hyzer flip.
Mm,
Um, so I'm kind of trying to put the signal on back burner and go with craves because I can turn my crave over if everything's right, nose angles
yeah.
and everything right. So it's pretty functional discs. And
Hmm.
the green one, my new one, is more stable. That's about it.
Yeah.
And I like throwing
Yeah.
hyzer. I find it very oh, what's the word I'm thinking of? Stable. It will
Yeah.
do that every time, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then it looks like fusion versus neutron for your two craves, right? So, and I think definitely the neutron tends to be a little more stable than the fusion, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest with you, with plastics right now. I'm
Yeah.
a little too new to be too picky of what each
Mm,
plastic does.
yeah.
It's trust me, the hyzer will change that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So signal, and then again, I think it's important to note as well. You're playing a lot of like wooded
Mm-hmm.
straight golf, so your bag's a little heavier on like the neutral to like understable side
Yeah.
because of that, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to trust your disc to go straight or like stand up and go straight if you're trying to hit those lines in the
Yeah.
woods. We're going to skip the left side of the fairways for a minute because that's what we're going to talk about today. But I do want to hit the last three discs real quick here in your lineup. You have the Terra, the Trail, and the Time Lapse. Again, they're just kind of like stepping up, right? Terra. Let's come back to the Terra. We'll talk about the Terra last. Let's go all the way up to the Time Lapse. This is like an intervention. Let's be really honest. This is like you just want a bag of Time Lapse just because, or is it like been really great for you?
Dude, it flew, and it flew straight, and it went about 350 feet. I couldn't believe it.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Really?
I threw it flat. It worked.
Yeah.
So I don't like the feel of the wide rim. To be honest with you, and I probably won't pull it out too often, but it will be a second shot, farting around.
Right.
I was surprised. I thought the same thing. I mean, what, 12 speed?
Yeah.
I got a special spot for them in my shop. Those 12 and aboves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I couldn't believe it, and it's not as stable. It's fairly light, 168. I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've also heard like the original time lapses were pretty overstable, and then like these ones seem like the newer ones seem a little bit more throwable. For
Yeah.
about everybody, kind of to your point, right? And I think there's some beauty. Again, there's even if it is more overstable, like there's utility for that. I think I said on the last episode where if your arm speed's not quite to the 12, like throwing a 12 speed disc, if you need overstability or wind fighters or consistency, you can use that disparaging like arm speed versus disc speed against or for one another, right? To create overstability and reliability. But if you're throwing that thing out 350, it sounds like you need to get that out and throw it more personally.
100%. I was pleasantly surprised, and I couldn't believe it when I threw it and it almost flipped up. I was like, well, I think it did. It went straight and a nice little finish at the end, not a 3 dump. So,
yeah. And then you have the Trail. So Trail is pretty new addition.
Yeah, it's a far crave. It's pretty great as well. So if you throw it flat, like these are discs now where I'm really focusing on. I have to focus flat. A little backstory is I played a really windy tournament about a month ago, and I would have played my signal, but that would have flipped up. So I reached for my craves, and they went so far and straight, as long as I had the nose correct. So I'm really working on in the field or on the course nose angle, and it's paying off. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I know personally my goal for 2025 is like fix my nose angle.
Yeah.
Like if I do nothing else, that's what I'm working on. So, and then it brings us down to the Terra. Your note on Disc RPM says forehand only, 150 feet out, trust this disc. So,
Yeah.
tell us about that.
Yeah, I confident forehand, 150 feet to 200 feet. Great disc. I love it. They're nice discs for that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you're like, I need an overstable forehand shot, and I need to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost hole specific on some of these courses. You know how it is. You got a right turning hole, and I'm not going to try to do an Hyzer and mess with that. I learned to forehand for it. I mean, I've been forehanding for about a month and a half now, I think, is all. So I'm pretty early into the forehand game, and it's working.
So are you, do you feel like you really have to pump this disc to get it to go 200 feet on forehand?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good information for our conversation we're getting ready to get into, just because I assumed that, again, basing just kind of where it lands in your note, like you still have to kind of give this a pump. And then my only thing with having discs that you have to just hit really hard to do what they need to do is that leaves a lot of room for error in my experience. I think both of our experience, Jason, that any disc we feel like we have to just throw. So I took the lobster out of my bag initially, like last year or beginning of this year, because I felt like in order for it to do exactly what I wanted, I had to hit it so hard. When I hit it right, it did exactly what I wanted to. It was great, but I messed it up a lot. So it just kind of came out because of that reason. So that's on the understable side, right? But that particular flight that I needed, that's what I had to do.
Well, and that's the same with like the Envy goes to 150 easy, right? The Detour goes to say 225. You know what I mean? And then I've got those steps where if I have to try to pump it, I'm going to miss my lines. If I can get it nice and smooth out, it's
Yeah.
going close ish.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, I think that's great information. It's a great segue to our segment here with Jason and what we did, what he threw yesterday. So, Jason, tell us a little bit about what you threw and kind of like your initial impression of both of them.
For sure. Well, and I'll go ahead and just set the stage. One of these discs I already bagged. So it was easy to throw that. And I went out there knowing I was going to like the disc because I already bagged the disc. And it's probably a version, I have a pink version of the Jackalope, mint disc Jackalope. I have this exact same disc, but in pink. And it is a version of my precious child. And that if I ever lose that pink disc, it'll be hard. I have other Jackalopes, but that one is my pink one, which is exactly like this one, is great. And I think what was this weight? This weight's 173, but I think mine's like 172, 171, so a similar weight, but a little beat in. And so I was excited to throw the Jackalope. It was easy to do that. And then the other disc I threw was a Streamline Shift, a newer disc or a re-release of a disc for them. So for those who don't know, the Jackalope is I double check because I always forget, 8.5-2.1, which I think is pretty accurate for what it is. The plastics, as we always say, will change it. The Apex is a little more understable, and Eternal is a little bit more stable. Not crazy beefy stable, but a little bit more stable. And the Shift is I had to double check this too, a 9.5-3.1. And the other biggest difference is that this Shift, and every Shift we had it's not major domey, but it's definitely a little dome compared to the Jackalope, which the camera may not show. The Jackalope's definitely not Firebird flat, but it's flat, whereas the Shift has a little bit of a dome, and you can feel it in your hand as well. Mm-hmm. And the Shift I threw was 174. Now I'll tell you right now, right? It's 9.5-3, but it was. I don't throw very hard, so I did not realize that was a -3. The same way that I didn't realize a Lobster was a -3. While we were talking, I went and looked up my Lobster, which is my favorite disc right now. It's 5.5-3. Well, it doesn't. For me, it is not a -3. It's definitely like a -2, and the Eternal one's maybe like a -1, right? Going back to the whole point, numbers are unique to us on how those numbers fly. So when I went out yesterday, my primary focus, based on what Robbie had sent us and we talked about, was doing forehand throws only. So I threw one backhand once just for the fun of it because I like the Jackalope and I want to see how the Shift was. But I threw in a field forehand back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. I threw a third disc. Well, I actually threw 4 discs, but I threw a third disc that within a few throws, I knew it wasn't there at all. And I also threw an FD for the first time, which was very interesting for me, which is 7601, which was kind of fun because we had some extra ones. But our primary focus was this, based on looking at your chart. And so the key to, let me ask you this, when you throw, you're new to the forehand game. I mean, for me, I'm in the last year, maybe 6 to 8 months, that I've actually embraced the forehand. So I'm comfortable enough now that on a forehand hole, I have the disc that if I throw it right, I can do it right, both understable and overstable disc. So I'm still new. I am a little more experienced than you are, Lynn, but it's still new to me. But I've got confidence now, which made a big deal. We played so much New London this last year. I had to get confidence with my forehand, and it just kind of forced me into it. When you throw your forehand, you say your backhand is mostly Hyzer. Is your forehand mostly Hyzer? Is your forehand flat? How is your limited forehands? What angle are you throwing those discs?
They're flat.
Flat.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that will drive the conversation I'll have with you today, because these discs, when I forehand my Crave a lot. I rarely backhand my Crave. Is primarily a forehand disc. That my Jackalope can do the same thing. It's just a longer version of that. But when I was throwing these discs, if I threw it on a Hyzer, it flipped up very well. Granted, I've been throwing forehand a little bit more and been working a little bit more on my wrist pop. But if I threw on a Hyzer, not extreme Hyzer, but noticeable Hyzer, I could flip it up. It would turn a little bit to the left and then drift back to the right. Not a hardcore finish, but it didn't burn all the way over. Now, if I did a little flat to Anheuser throw, it never burned over, but it was definitely a long a long consistent turn. Because one of the things I love about the glide on the Jackalope, one of the things I love about the Jackalope is when I catch it right, it goes a really long way. It's, even though it's an 8-speed, it's because I don't throw far and I don't even carry a 10-speed in the bag. It's my distance driver on almost every hole. I have a rhythm that I'll throw sometimes 2 on a wide open hole, but I really fall back to my Jackalope because I know if I pump it correctly, I can get it 280 to 290 because the glide is so well. So each time I threw the Jackalope, I knew that was going to be the case when I caught it right. And I intentionally threw with some extreme Hyzer. Extreme Hyzer, I Hyzer flip sort of on the forehand, but even the extreme Hyzer, it never really Hyzer flipped, but it came up a little bit, almost to flat, and then pushed and rode all the way to the right. If I threw it a little bit more flat with a little bit less Hyzer, but a little bit Hyzer, it flipped up, slight turn to the left, and then a drop down to the right. An easy finish, not a hard crash, but like an easy finish. And then if I put a little flat, a little Anheuser, it was definitely a long push. I would told Brad, and this was full disclosure, in a field, no distractions, no wind. I threw like by far my farthest forehands ever. One way I threw back through the Jackalope 285 and the Shift 290, and I was like, well, that was wild, but it was a full version of a S-line, right? I threw on a little bit of slight Hyzer, flat to Hyzer, went, drifted, and just kept on going. And then when it came back, it even drifted some on the back. And then I turned around and threw the other way, and it was on, so for Brad's perspective, I was on the field by hole 17 on Timbrook, which is where I was throwing, right, Brad? And I was down by my longest throw, I was down near the tee for 16 and threw and caught the hill and went down into the fairway for 17. And so, so that hill gave me a little extra distance, let's be clear, right? Because I got to ride the hill down. It probably would have been like maybe 310, but it ended up being like 340 because it just caught a perfect flight that just S-ed all the way down, right? But I told Brad it'd be great if I could do that all the time. I can't, but I know I can if I need to do such a thing. What that really told me about these discs is when I catch it right, the glide is just amazing on these things, right? What is true is this Jackalope definitely had a little bit more, not beefy stability, but noticeable stability. So on each of the angles I threw it, if I was an extreme Hyzer, it pushed a little bit more, but stayed on the Hyzer a little bit more. It was a pushing Hyzer that would go right. Whereas the Shift would you could see flip up a little bit quicker, a little bit easier on that forehand for sure. And then I have more confidence in Jackalope. So in the end, I threw the Jackalope better for my mind. But if I'd never thrown the Jackalope and the Shift was all I was doing, I came away with that very happy as well. The hand feel for these, for me, the Shift feels a little deeper, not extremely deeper. It's not like a wildly different kind of feeling, but it's definitely a little deeper on that. And I like things that aren't deep, but have a little bit enough for my finger pads to get in there, right? The other thing too, I will come back to, and it took me a sec. I'd be full disclosure. I'm not trying to get you away from the Shift, but because it has a little dome, it was a little odd at first because this is the way I throw my forehand. I think Brad throws yours like that, right, Brad? When you're not doing the one finger forehand. But I throw my forehand are stacked. I think is what the term they use, where I'm kind of pinching here, and so the dome was a little different to get used to. So I turned it over a couple of times too much because I was pulling it a little too much. But after a few throws, I got very comfortable with how I'd thrown because I'd never really thrown a domey disc on forehand like that before. So that's a lot of words I just threw at you. Apologize, Lynn. My biggest feedback for those is once I figured out the right angle, for me and for my forehand, the push and the glide was pretty impressive. And on the right angle, on the correct angle, it would either come back a little bit or it would just kind of ride that the entire way. Right. On a super windy day, the understability is going to come into play. That's the way it is. But I would never throw these. Even for me, I wouldn't throw these on a windy day. I would pull out like a Raptor or something like that because that's my go-to overstable disc. Is the Raptor for that very reason, for those windy kind of days. And I've been messing around with the Coalesce as well from Thought Space. But for that day where it's light wind and the wind's not really going to affect it, but I was pleasantly surprised with this. And on a hole where I need to make a long forehand, this is definitely one I would pull out. Like I don't forehand the Jackalope a lot, even though I have in the past. But doing that yesterday brought it back to my mind. I'm like, maybe I should just go back to mess around with the Jackalope since I love it as much as I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think all that, Lynn, is really what I was hoping to see, because I know like you have like the overstable forehand you want, maybe it doesn't go super far, but you have one that you're comfortable with that is like reliably overstable. But when I look at the gap in your bag, at least on this graph, I think you like, if you're comfortable throwing a forehand in this overstable forehand, some of the best advice I ever got actually from Hunter was throwing understable, like slightly understable discs on forehand initially will help develop that forehand form, the wrist pop, because it's going to give you the confidence to flip it up and push or even turn a little bit, and also get the distance that you need so that you're, doing the forehand motion more often because you're more comfortable, and like it'll develop. And obviously there's still, you can still use that shot even if you have an amazing forehand, right? You can have a touch forehand flip up that you need to do, but for right now, and Jason's kind of the test to that, is you can really pump these forehands up because they'll flip up for you, even like get a full flight. If you don't need to get right really fast and you have a little bit of room to play, like these are great just to play with, to like push distance out and see if you can really get to a hole by utilizing the full flight of the disc.
And I will add this too, and I'm glad Brad said that, because I focus on your staying kind of blank, but I because I'm getting more comfortable with my forehand, I was focusing on a wrist pop yesterday, very much so. Not much for run up, not much for up, a little easy step, but really a good form, but good wrist pop to see if I get that distance. I think that was one of the biggest differences for me yesterday, how it just kind of clicked yesterday. The wrist was just going there really well. But, and I'll say this too, not just to gloss over or say not, but even on my missed throws, I was easily going 220 to 240 to 250 off a missed throw where I turned it over a little bit and it still kind of glid and came out, or pushed a little bit to the right. It never, neither one of these turned and burned one way or the other. They were going to push whatever angle I was on. But when I was able to get that very focused wrist pop is when the distance just kind of shot out of my hand.
Yeah, and I also think, coming back full circle when I made that comment about feeling like you had to really, really put the beans into a Terra to get it at 150 because it's so overstable, you can actually start learning some touch, and that combination of touch and wrist pop with a disc like this so that you can develop that distance. But again, you're going to maintain your accuracy because you don't feel like you have to kill it to make it pop up and go far, right? You can just kind of like give it a nice smooth, and you're talking about detour smooth, envy smooth, crave smooth, trail smooth.
Yep.
Like this kind of all fits into that like mentality, a good mentality that you already have, and that'll help you start developing this particular area of your bag. Again, because I think a lot of people go like really overstable or like, 0.2 or whatever to try to like pair it with your Terra. I think you need to do something like -2.1. Like that's going to be a really good like flip up, pushing Hyzer type of forehand disc for you to really look at distance. But you've heard both of our feedback, both of our theory. What sounds good to you, Lynn? What's like kind of piquing your interest?
Well, so which one's more overstable? And you're
But between the two, the jackalope has more stability between the two. So
honestly,
it's not good.
What would you guys recommend, to be honest with you? They sound very similar, but slightly, yeah.
Yeah, so I am biased. I would say jackalope all day because it can do multiple things. It's not going to be beefy, but it's going to ride a line really well. It can flip up, it can turn, and then if you really like the jackalope, you can. The good thing about the jackalope, it's for me, it's primarily a backhand disc, but now it's probably going to become a multi-use forehand and backhand disc. So I'm not using it for just one thing or the other because I don't forehand it enough. And then I carry an Eternal jackalope as well. So if you really like the jackalope and you get into multiple plastics, the Eternal is noticeably more stable, not wildly more, but noticeably more, if that makes sense at all, right? An Eternal plastic and mint is clearly the more stable version of the disc. Still flies, still feels the same way, but it's that stronger finish depending on which way you're throwing it. I didn't mean to jump in on your Brad, but I just want to be like, there's no doubt for me, the shift was great. I was surprised first time I'd ever actually thrown a shift was yesterday, and so I was happy with that. But I was already biased towards the jackalope, and then yesterday made me happy because now it's going to come in a little bit more forehand play for me.
I think the little bit of overstability will help too. But go ahead, Jason or Brad. Sorry, you're.
Yeah, no, I'm with the jackalope as well. I mean, I think the shift was really more of a like how I've heard different opinions on the shift, like how understable is it really? And Jason, you said it's not a -3, but it's but it's just interesting because then again, proton plastic can be a little bit more overstable than like what I mean. So there's all kinds of stuff going into play, but really the jackalope, I'm with Jason for the reason of I think with you being more flat release and trying to be more flat release with the backhand and forehand, the error percentage is going to be more low with the jackalope because it does have some more stability to it on forehand. And on backhand, I think it's going to be a nice complement to your Crave. So I always like to recommend a disc I think has multiple shots. I do think the Shift or something like the Shift might be good for you on backhand, but you're kind of already doing that with a trail. And although it's more straight than the Shift, you have a lot on that understable side, and you can do work over there. I really like the jackalope. It's going to give you more variety on like that forehand confidence pushing, slightly stable side, but also on your backhand with your Hyzer release. I think you're going to really love it on backhand too. It's going to cover that areas. And best of all for you, Mint is manufactured by MVP, so you already like the plastics.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Cool.
Well, Lynn, that sounds great. I think it's going to make a great compliment, something new and fun in your bag. And we'll get this sent out to you. And I guess in the future, you mind coming on an episode and talking and see, was this a good addition or did you hate it?
Heck yes, anytime, guys. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, of course, Lynn. Well, we'll get this out in the mail to you, and we appreciate you being on.
All right.
We'll see you
All
soon.
right. See you guys. Thanks.
Hey, good episode, solid episode. And I think if maybe I'm misspeaking, but that might be the first double recommendation. I don't think we've double recommended a disc yet. Surely we have. Surely
Probably.
we have. But it doesn't. I don't recall anything. But jackalope gets brought up a lot. It's good to see it being recommended. But I will say it's for a different spot and a different type of shot. So that's awesome. And it's a disc that always comes in and out of my bag. It's just such a good disc. It really is. And good. I'm glad to see you got some confidence with your forehand on it too and your backhand. So I'm sure I'll see that coming out a little bit more often.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, awesome. Well, a little bit more exciting week than I anticipated in the warehouse this week, Jason. I mean, it started off like on Friday being like, we might have another slow week, but we got a lot of stuff happening this week.
Yep. We have a big.
So why don't you walk us through?
I can say the easy stuff is that we'll have an ongoing Innova restock, right? All of them may not be up by Friday, but just kind of the standard stuff. I know also some Halo Sidewinders go up today. The other stuff are going up, so we'll have a bunch of Innova that jumps this week. We have. I didn't even know what it was. I saw Discmania Dynamic has a disc that dropped yesterday. I guess today, because we're filming on Tuesday, but it's actually we're dropping this.
Yeah.
What disc was that? I didn't even pay attention.
It's so we have the MD4 Eternal Void, Kyle Klein Eternal Void.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, MD4. That is a great disc.
Yeah.
I loved it when we had the prototype. That is a fun disc, overstable mid. And then also they're doing a full Triumph series for Gannon Bird. This one is, I actually forget which one it is. Maybe but it's a P2X, but I forget which stamp
I don't know if
it is.
it's his Pro
Triumph
Tour Championship or I don't know. I saw it over there as well, but I don't remember which one it is.
Yeah, yeah. So that's dropping as well. We have some restocks of some oldies but goodies. I mean, Captain's Thrashers went up. That's exciting. First run Zono S's are up. Z, so that's pretty cool. Again, I hope you sign up for the text deal because it already went out, but have a great text deal this week as well. It was a Discraft mold I never thought we'd have in again. I'll just say that. So that's fun. We also have there's a Christmas champion Halo Champ Toro that's coming in. We've got Evelina Destroyers, which are fun. The Swirly Destroyers. Let's see. Oh, Meridian Discs. Never had them before. A new company for us. Plastic feels pretty good. Interesting. Not like your standard plastic, but I definitely there's one called the Straight I'm kind of interested in.
Right. It looks good. I mean, the plastic looks clean and not as odd as that sounds, right? It looks clean, like good clean plastic, not some dingy plastic. Because we see people who are trying to get in the game whose plastic just they're trying, and we applaud them for trying, but it's not always the best. But their stuff came out very clean and feeling quite nice, honestly. Yeah, they have like it's almost they have a I forget what the plastic's actually called, but it's more like a Z Jawbreaker kind of look to it, which is very cool. Let's see. Trash Panda 3-disc box. If you wanted to get into Trash Panda and you haven't yet, they have like a starter set box. If you will, except it's not really a starter set. I mean, it has the Dune, the Ozone, and
inner core. Wow, almost forgot about it. But that's all in a box as well. So we have a ton of stuff going up. Make sure you check out Recently Restocked as always. When you're shopping, again, we're close to Christmas. By the time you hear this episode, I don't think you'll get stuff in by Christmas, unfortunately. So hopefully you got all your Christmas shopping done. If you do, and you get just under the tree and it's good, where do they keep it, Jason?
In the bag.
We'll see y'all next week.